Hi, everyone. This is Kimberly Ray with Marine Conservation Network, and thank you for joining us today. We are here with Sean R Van Sommeran. He is the founder of the Pelagic Shark Research Foundation, located in the Santa Cruz County, first shark conservationist in the world. And we are going to be discussing the shark strandings that he's been coming across. Now, you all know sharks are important to the ocean ecosystem. We talk about the sharks a lot on how they keep everything in balance and why it's important to protect them. So we're going to talk to Sean today about that subject and about what's happening to them. So how are you doing today, Sean? How are you? You staying dry and drying out?
Yeah, the sun was out today. It's overcast again, but yeah, far drier than it has been for these past few months. Hi there. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Sean. I'm with the Pelagic Shark Research Foundation. We're based in Monterey Bay out of Santa Cruz County. One of our projects is a stranding, rescue, and specimen collecting unit. We established this, like I say, in the 1990s. It's the first of a kind effort, kind of following in the footsteps of, like, say, Marine Mammal Center, helping with stranded marine mammals. There's this kind of sidebar project we've been cultivating for many years now regarding sharks, rays, fish, even things like giant squid that we've collected. And in particular, I think we're going to address the recent strandings in San Francisco Bay. I try to put that quickly in context, in long-term perspective, and then kind of address, some of both the remedies and, the causes, the results and stuff like that.
Where are you finding most of these strandings? Is there one particular area or is it all up and down the coast?
It's kind of all up and down the coast. The hot spots are definitely San Francisco Bay. Our area of operations is in Central California around the Monterey Bay. There are units and efforts underway, Long Beach, Marine Lab, etc., and some others as well. UC Davis, UCSC are all helping in this effort that started quite a while ago and is now kind of coming into its own. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife is helping coordinate this thing under the Aqua Hero Lab, who's just done some really smashing work in addressing identification of causality and the dynamics, and searching out remedies. What can we do to at least slow it down, make it hurt less, that kind of thing. You've got dozens, even hundreds and thousands of these sharks dying, as in like 2011, 2017. It's not uncommon, but it shouldn't be seen as like, oh, that's normal, because these sharks and rays don't normally die in these big numbers.
Have you noticed that the numbers of strandings have gone up since 2017?
No. In fact, that was the big one. That's the one that got a lot of press attention. It was bay wide. It was thousands of animals. It was caught on during a live baseball team where a shark was seen floundering around in the mud, up in the Bay Area. And it raised the concerns of a lot of local residences because it smelled really bad. You had, dozens and, of dead, rotted animals in these canals by nice, neighborhoods, by Oracle Pond and stuff like that. It was bay wide, we're talking thousands of animals. So it raised a lot of alarm. And looking into the history of these things, these events date back to the 50s. And probably well before that, with landfill and restructuring what used to be tidal marine estuaries, which are reduced by 90%. There's, 10% of our historical tidal marine estuaries have now been converted quite nicely in many ways to inland suburban, canals, waterways, duck ponds and lagoons, and, the double as stormwater basins. To prevent flooding, there are a lot of systems of tide gates and tubes. It's kind of a circuitous way in, and time to time, especially in the springtime and seasonally when there's anticipated big rains or flash floods, they need to close those gates, reduce the water levels to accommodate the runoff, right? It's a stormwater basin. And then they can use pump stations, et cetera, to keep those waters from, flooding everything. Doesn't always work. We've had a lot of flooding just this year here locally in Monterey Bay, as well as up in the Bay Area. Oakland Zoo got all beat up. It was just a very tough winter. So it's kind of a microcosm. We're talking maybe 100 plus animals, something ballpark around there over the last 2 months.
What have you found has been the major cause for all these strandings? Is it because of the storms where all the pesticide and all that that's going to the water, or is it just the water's changing? What do you found so far?
It's a multiple part thing, and you know, we haven't got it completely, you know, figured out or sorted out. It's definitely an artifact of runoff in the watershed, right? We've got this kind of juxtaposition of very nice urban, suburban, you know, waterways. It's fun to, you know, kayak, and, you know, people live right on the shore and Redwood Shores, and, you know, Berkeley Aquatic Park is a lot of, you know, very neat places, stuff, but they need to control that. We do have, you know, periodic bouts of rain. We just came off a big drought. And so, yeah, there's going to be a lot of junk in that watershed. You know, there's often a discussion about, oh, the water was too fresh, and therefore these saltwater creatures, you know, died because of the, you know, low salinity. And that's kind of a handy excuse, right? But, you know, there's hundreds and hundreds of striped sea bass and, you know, anadromous fish, species that are very able to cope with both salt and fresh water, brackish water. Leopard sharks and bat rays themselves are very able to cope with low salinity, better than any other shark in the Eastern Pacific. Are these estuarine sharks, guitar fish and stuff. They're designed to deal with, you know, hypersaline and low saline, right? And then you got striped bass and sturgeon and stuff like that, where, you know, they don't care. You know, they'll adapt to that quite nicely. However, it's not crystal geyser spring water being poured into these watersheds. It needs to be understood. This is, you know, in fact, you know, runoff.
Is there anything that we can do to lessen the amount of strandings or anything?
In part, you know, I think it's problematic because I don't think there's any actual, you know, remedy to it entirely. But I think you can definitely take the sting off of it and address it directly head on with the public works people.
Okay.
That maintain all those tide gates and inland water canals and do such a good job in preventing flooding. They've got the personnel. I've talked to the employees, et cetera, like that. The officials, the administrators and bosses are really cagey and don't like it. The property managers don't like it. It's bad publicity, but, you know, the personnel are there. They can get the equipment. What I mean is scoop net. So you get the first series of reports about bat rays stuck on a tide gate in, you know, Redwood City, whatever, whoever it happens to be. You know, let public works know. They'll send down 4 or 5 guys in a pickup truck, scoop nets, big tub of fresh, you know, fresher, clean salt water in the back of the truck, scoop that critter out of there, put it in the back of the truck, and usher it to the coastline and release it.
Manpower. It's
manpower and a willingness to take responsibility, because there's, you know, what happens, you know, what if he gets stung by a bat ray? What if, you know, if the water's, you know, people are cagey about the water quality, right? You don't want to get a cut, you know, and all this stuff, but at the same time, they're trying to act like it's fresh water. No, it's not. And one of the ingredients is animals getting caught. That can be early on. Corte Madera, town of Corte Madera, North Bay. It's not 100% thing. They can't get to all the animals, but they remove a good deal of them, and that reduces mortality. I think it slows down the infectious pathogens that generate out from these, you know, cadaver, you know, the deposition, accumulation of rotted carcasses, you know, ushers in all these nematodes and protozoa and stuff like that, you know, do their thing. And you can mitigate that to some degree by removing rotted dead ones. And I tell the public works guys, look, you can respond immediately while the animal's still alive and get it out of there, or you can ignore it, and then you'll get different set of phone calls 10 days later complaining about the smell of the rotted carcasses, and you have to go down there and get them anyway.
These aren't sharks that are on top of the ecosystem like the great white. These are like bottom dwellers or smaller size sharks.
These are classic estuarine / benthic sharks. You know, they're you know, their population could be reduced by 50%. They're considered a species of least concern because they're still so abundant. I don't feel they're endangered, but they're definitely much more limited. They don't seem to get as big as they used to back in the old days. Looking at just old photos, and you know, it's anecdotal. It wasn't very careful data taken. But their abundances and range has, you know, both shifted and declined with the reduction of tidal marine estuarine habitat, right? So much of that Bay Area was tidal marine estuaries, right? You know, these are the good old days, long gone, you know, skies dark with geese and ducks and tule elk and grizzly bears were, you know, stomping around. You know, that's not real practical nowadays, right? But you know, the point is that place was just like British Columbia with better weather, and it was stocked full of all kinds of wildlife. Not for lack of trying, there's still a lot left, but there are these complications that need to be addressed head on. We can't just say these sharks die naturally spawning every year. That's been an excuse rolled out. I don't think people should be fooled by the excuse, or explanation that the water was so fresh that the sharks died of happiness or something. These are saltwater animals, but this water being introduced through the watershed into these inland canals and tide gate systems that do trap animals isn't fresh, clean water, right? It is what it is. It's runoff. It kills a bunch of different sharks. We can get organized locally based teams to respond, like Marine Mammal Center has groups that go down and help marine mammals.
Right. So we need more manpower to go out and help with the strandings of the sharks and the rays and everything like
There's
that.
groups like Shark Stewards up in San Francisco that raised an eyebrow at it lately. They kind of became a little bit more aware in 2017. They do a lot of stuff with legislation, do good work. They spend a lot of time off site, right? So I think it can be irritating to a lot of people in the Bay Area because it's so forward thinking and green. They see us, some, Pelagic Shark Research Foundation is like, they're not even from here. They're up in Monterey Bay talking smack about San Francisco Bay. And I'm like, no.
Do you think it's because of the image that most people have about sharks? They think when they think of a shark, automatically the public thinks of Jaws and something scary, and not realizing that they're really important to the ecosystem. Do you think that's why you don't have the manpower, or people aren't really getting on top of this like they should?
We get by in a large degree. I've only got 5 to 6 volunteers, fewer 4, and unless I make a bunch of phone calls, less than that during the winter time when there's not a lot going on. Usually we get these calls, stranding calls in the spring, and I kind of prepare for them. This one caught us a little bit off guard.
What would you suggest to the general public if they come across, they're just out walking along the beach or around the estuaries or whatever? What would you suggest if somebody in the general public came across one of these strandings? Who do they contact, or what should they do? Do they not touch it? Do they call somebody? What is the best advice you could give if somebody comes across one?
Nearest point of contact. So if you're at a state park rangers, whether it's their kiosk or ranger station, lifeguards, a lot of the rangers double as lifeguards. Contact one of those people, let them know right away. Maybe if you got the time, and follow up to what's the nearest marine lab. If you don't have like a team established, then you may contact someone there at the lab who, as a biologist, is interested. People do like sharks. I don't think the shark's negative image is really an issue anymore. Really.
You think they've gotten past that with all the ocean conservation coming up?
Yeah, if anything, the Jaws stereotype has become sort of a tourist attraction, right? People pay money to go out and see the scary shark.
Right.
Those so much staying out of the water, or like, oh, sharks, and this is California too, right? So we've got like maybe half the speed they have it in Florida. Few bars bite people, if ever. We've got white sharks. It's pretty much the only really, potentially hazardous shark there is.
I used to hear that you would die sooner from a toaster in the water than you do a shark.
Definitely keep your toasters out of the bathtub or something like that. Just driving to the beach, right, is much more risky. You come back and your car's all vandalized.
Well, we're going to put down the link down the bottom to your website. Any other way that people can contact you personally if they want to help out, or if they want to let you know?
Our email address is psrf@pelagic.org. Feel free to share our phone number. If you're in California, again, contact the nearest lab. Cal Academy. If you're in Southern California, Long Beach Marine Lab.
Are there plenty of labs along California? Because I mean, that's kind of hard to keep track of all of them.
There's Bodega Bay, there's UC Davis, which is in part Bodega Bay as well. San Francisco State has helped out, doing a lot of these necropsies. Mark ushers in a bunch of students who become PhDs, and really it opens up a whole new field. Where a lot of people are queued up to go into marine mammalogy. It's like, hey, right over here, there's some interesting stuff here to do with everything, sea turtles, and there's sharks and rays, and there's a lot of cool things besides just marine mammal.
Right.
or seabirds or turtles, you know, they're adorable. Sharks, molomos, less charismatic. Sharks have a lot of baggage, increasingly less, or it's kind of morphed. You know, I think now the sharks, it's like Jaws. Oh, good, get your fishing rod. You know, if
Yeah.
aren't like, oh, a shark, you know, let's go out and you know, dangle.
I've seen a change in the past couple of years too. When I used to work over
really scared so much of the shark so much is you know, they want to get some, you know. That's
right, exactly.
so that's a big part of it. Poaching's been a big problem. You know, there's good news. You know, the white shark protected status and regulations have been upgraded this year in terms of trying to address chronic poaching. People going out and catching white sharks on purpose and pretending to be doing it by accident when, you know, called into the carpet.
Right.
Didn't have a lot of, you know, confidence, you know, writing a ticket. It's annoying to the prosecutors and any of the people above them to have to deal with what may be a petty, type of thing. And, you know, there's a lot of, you know, gray area around, because some of these guys it was an accident, you know, they try to catch a big striper, you know, but there's a lot of guys that post on Facebook, on social media, you know, oh, we accidentally caught 4 white sharks in one night. And they'll show these pictures. They're using rays for bait. And these big steel. I was fishing for, a leopard shark. And he's got a big old, 0.6 hook with wire cable leader. That guy's not fishing for anything but, white sharks.
Right.
As they show, they catch them repeatedly throughout the season. And it's become a problem. They wash up dead from the hook injuries. There's this, favored pat answers like, oh, I do nothing but catch and release. Everything I release is unharmed.
Is the great white shark the only shark that's actually protected? Or are there other sharks that you're not supposed to fish for that are protected, or is it just the great white?
It's pretty much just the great white shark. We need the I call them white sharks, right? They are great, but there's the great basking shark, for example, which is the most endangered species of large shark in the entire Pacific.
Right.
The Eastern Pacific. And Canada's listed them as both endangered and protected species in the Eastern Pacific coast of Canada. Hits the US border in Washington and it goes away. And there's no real explanation about it. They just as soon not, plug their ears and hum. The science is good because they're a data deficient species. So when you can't get a transmitter on one and get a science paper published, that's the whole name of the game, publish or perish, right? But in terms of the conservation end, they're super, like, they don't hear that, or they're just so cautious about being cautious, which I don't understand. It's like, okay,
a little too much so, exactly.
Not endangered, make them protected. No one's ostensibly fishing for them now anyway, so they say. I think they're, ample evidence are being taken opportunistically for their liver, etc.
Right.
But yeah, that's a whole other episode we could delve into.
The
US
isn't great. Why do you think only the white shark is protected? Why aren't we protecting other sharks? Why is it just the white?
It's not easy getting species of sharks protected. It just isn't, because they're fun to catch, and
right.
Males especially really adore that connection with that predator.
Right. And it goes back to the image of what's associated.
Yeah.
What happens to the sharks that you find that are stranded, especially the ones that are deceased? What do you end up doing with the body? Do you end up sending it over to a lab and letting them do what they need to do with it? Or
fresh. It has to be like sushi grade, for the optimal, so you can do histology and pathology and everything, right? So that's ideal. When you get one of those, it's always good to send to the lab.
Okay.
You always do a cursory inspection, because you can have a very well rotted, carcass where you can barely tell what species it is. But if it has a hook in its mouth, or a fishing line coming out of its, gullet where it has, that's kind of obvious. Okay, this is a fishing mortality. Or if sometimes fresh ones will wash up with scuff marks on them, or it got tangled in a net or tangled in something, right? Whales aren't the only things that get trapped, tangled up in ropes.
Right, exactly.
Rescued,
there's multiple animals that get caught in those nets.
Yeah, we've rescued 3 different white sharks that were entangled in ropes here in Monterey Bay.
Wow.
Past 5 years.
Wow.
And we've had 3 others washed up dead. One had a pathogen infection. It's yet to be fully identified. It's being worked on. Some of the stuff takes a long time. One was apparently hit by a boat. We can't guess whether it was impaired and got hit by a boat, or some of these boats just go really fast.
Wow.
Didn't get out of the way. I don't know. I doubt someone would steer into it and try to hit the shark, right?
Oh no.
But if you're going real fast and the visibility's low, or you're not, looking right in front of your boat, sharks can be cryptic and they'll cruise right in your path and you'll hit them. And so, that one got hit by a boat, washed ashore, dead. That's written off as a vessel strike. A third one washed up, had been shot in the head numerous times, sadly, by a commercial fishing boat that was fishing very close to shore. Was very close to getting it caught in his net, right? He had a big net of pompano, and not a big fishing boat. He should have known better. He's fishing very near shore at night, and he shot a rifle at it. A couple warning shots at its head, killed the shark, washed ashore the next morning.
Wow.
And it was collected immediately, brought to the lab. And Mark, doing very meticulous CSI, forensic stuff, was able to identify the actual rifle the bullets came from. Fish and Wildlife agents and investigators, tracked that down and got the guy to confess. Again, this isn't a big scale commercial fisherman, smart boat, hardworking, not a bad guy, but just again should have known better.
You'd mentioned before that part of what's going on is the runoffs that are coming out from the estuaries. Are there pesticides or DDT or anything like that you think is also affecting the strandings, or is it mainly just the water mixed with salt water?
These are bioaccumulative toxins that build up. As early as 2011, following the first year that Mark and Fish and Wildlife officially joined the investigation that I had already established. All that stuff was looked at. One of the results following that year's stranding events, was that through all the investigations and data gathering, it was the public was advised not to eat leopard sharks or bat rays. The public health and safety people were obligated to report the findings because the sharks are so loaded with mercury, and pollutants, trace organochlorines, and all this stuff that's bioaccumulative. These sharks can live 40 years plus. They will accumulate a lot of that stuff. They're in that silty, muddy sediment environment, eating innkeeper worms and stuff, foraging through that mud. There's still DDT in the sediments in certain areas of the San Francisco Bay. There's actually radioactive waste in San Francisco Bay from, Point Hunter, used to be a naval facility and stuff. And it's a big city. It's not the worst in the world. It's probably some of the nicest in so many ways, but it's not perfect, right? Nothing is. And we do have this chronic problem of sharks and rays and fish getting stuck in these inland waterways, dying, and then being discharged out into the bay.
What is the strangest shark that you've come across that's been beached, or the strangest ray that you've the rarest, I should say, maybe not the strangest, the rarest?
The white sharks were unusual, I guess. They're all kind of neat in a different morbid way. Like a 14.5-foot sleeper shark, usually in the deep water. They get as big as, bigger, maybe even bigger than a white shark. They're deep sea.
What about a prickly shark? Isn't that a deep water shark?
Yeah, we just had a 10-footer wash up. I got a call from the Marine Mammal Center again and put everyone on the alert. And we were able to, I talked to Mark, and we decided to call Colleen at California Fish and Wildlife Department lab in Santa Cruz at Long Marine Lab. And they were able to get a truck and run down there and get that specimen.
Good.
Which is good. Also got a helpful call from a marine mammal person, a benthic ecology student, undergrad at Moss Lane Marine Lab, who took pictures and helped identify it. And so there was loot there for everybody. There, that stuff like it's treasure if you're a biologist, right? So you had this prickly shark, 10 feet long, approximately, intact, very fresh, perfect lab specimen. The sad part is we've been doing this for over 30 years, and very few of the rescued sharks that wash up on the coast live once they hit the beach. They're really immune to infections, circulatory diseases, cancers, right up until they're not, right? And so a lot of these coastal sharks, it's a different set of pathogens than what we find with the leopard sharks and the bat rays in San Francisco Bay. That's a protozoa primarily, and also nematodes and stuff like that. The coastal strandings of pelagic sharks like mako sharks and thresher sharks, blue sharks, are a different set of pathogens. We have carnobacteriums, which appear to be spiking in terms of strandings of pelagic sharks. For some decades, we've had an increased number, steadily rising number of salmon shark stranding. And then in more recent years, mako sharks and thresher sharks. So you have that, then you have poachers, which will catch sharks for fun. They don't want to keep it. They don't think they're doing any harm. They're not trying to hurt it. They want to have it for a minute, catch it, talk about it, and then let it go. And they don't care what happens after that. They just say it's all fine. But man, we pick up a lot of animals as well that die as a result of so-called harmless, catch and release. I always advise the guys that are doing catch and release or concerned about catching something accidentally, use a barbless hook. It's so much easier to get out, especially with throat hooks or something like that. The barb's the problem, really. I mean, obviously the hook's a problem. Use a circle hook, barbless circle hook. So it only injures the jaw structure, and it's not hard to get. The shark might shake it out himself without a barb, and guys don't like it sometimes because it makes it harder to fish, right? Well, salmon fishing requires you have a barbless hook because so many of the fish have to be released. You want to release it with the best chance of, a barbed hook is the rest. That animal is very more or less likely to recover. So remove the barb and use proper fishing technique and tactics. Keep your rod tip up, keep your lines tight, and a barbless hook shouldn't be a problem.
So to conclude the interview, is it your point of view that all these strandings that you've been coming across is not necessarily climate change as much as it is irresponsibility of taking care of the water, the runoffs, or catching them incorrectly or correctly? It's more of the human factor as opposed to the climate change?
Well, yeah, if you run that gamut, that gauntlet of various causes, yeah, it's definitely, you can't blame, a hook injury on global warming.
Right.
The animal caught behind the tide gate, you can't necessarily blame on global warming. It may be an artifact of, the heavy rain, which preceded the use of the tidal gate.
Okay.
So I don't know, and I can't say with any real, I don't know. So I have to say I don't know whether this, whole thing is because of climate change. Obviously, climate and weather is a big factor. Heavy rains or drought. We've had many years of drought as well. I can't say that. All I can identify is that, these animals get caught behind tide gates, they die, they get washed out into the bay, and then continue to die. And it's not just because the water's so fresh. And I think it could be remedied by organizing, nearby teams.
Okay.
Preferably the public works guys themselves, because I think they know the waterways better than anybody. They know.
Well, we'll definitely put a link to your website and your phone number if you want to put that out there, and they can people can contact us at our website, marineconservationnet.org. We'll connect everybody together because we definitely need you, the general public, to help out with this, because it doesn't matter if it's climate change or if it's irresponsibility of humans. It's still our responsibility to take care of the ecosystem, which is our life support. So I want to thank you, Sean, for being on today. I've had a great time. We got a lot of good information. We're going to have Sean back on again with more specific on specific species of sharks, and you guys can comment and send us any questions that you may have. This is Kimberly with Marine Conservation Network. And remember, together we make oceans a difference. Talk to you later, and thanks a lot. Thanks, Sean.